we plant, we call them centers. Like, for example, we are seated right now in a Christian Faith Center office, right? Where I work. And the reason why we call them centers is because we realize man is not only spiritual, man is physical. And we also realize that in the past we've been taught that you have to always pray, but we do not add action to prayer. You know, we just pray. The Bible says faith without works is dead. You know, you can never just say I'm a man of faith. I have seen a lot of prayer warriors who are suffering and struggling for years because they never put their faith into acts of faith. You know, so the reason why we open these centers and the reason why we call them centers is because we don't want it to be church. We want people to be edified in all their areas of life. Spiritually, they have to be edified. We teach the word without compromise. And yet, physically, we teach people skills. For example, here we have skills like fashion designing. For a person who has never been to school, that is a simple skill which can be taught even if you've never been to school. You know, we teach computing. You know, just basics of computing and all the other programs that we have set in place, programs like mechanics, simple mechanics. What is the reason for that? The reason is we want to empower our communities to be self-sustaining. It's enough of begging. We have to do something for ourselves. We have to be independent. And I pray that this will be so even to the missionaries themselves, that they must look at the hours of the day. You know, the missionary is seated the whole day waiting for an evening meeting. In that day can be used effectively to finance yourself.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point. As a child of God, you really need to use the gifts that God has given you. The Bible tells us that God will bless the works of your hands. And if you have a skill, use it wisely and God will actually multiply it. Most of the people have so many gifts and talents and you're just sitting on them. As a child of God, as we have been informed, please do something about it. If it's singing, start singing, cut a CD. If you are good in mechanics, do something about it. If you are also good in writing, you can contact us. We can help you publish your first book. Bishop, I just want to look at this other area that I've seen in your book. It's about culture. You know, at the moment, it's like, you know, the Western culture has really infiltrated Africa. You can't really tell who's, I would say, an African American or an African. You know, it's more like it's just gone to the West. What is your view on culture in Africa?
Well, again, another quick summary there. What I think, Pastor Elijah, is we ourselves as Africans, we have downgraded ourselves to a point of thinking whatever culture God put us in was not good enough or was not godly, and hence embracing every other culture that comes our way. You know, and burying completely our own culture. You see, there are parents, I hope you're not one of them, Pastor Miti, who think that when my child speaks only English, then my child is a clever child, then my child is... And yet, what we are doing is just to rob ourselves and our generations to come of who we really are. Because God did not make a mistake to distribute us accordingly. The Bible is so clear that God knew the time. That is in Acts chapter 17 verse 26. God knew the set time for our birth and He knew the set area of our habitation. So God, if God put us, if we were born in Pretoria and we were born, say, among the Tswana people, which is the predominant tribe of Pretoria, we have to be proud of being Tswanas and embrace that. Now let me say this, that it's not everything in our cultures that is evil. You know, in fact, most of the things are not evil. You know, there's nothing wrong with it. And it's not everything in the Western culture that is good. And yet sometimes we think that everything is good, in the Western culture. In other words, I'm just saying, we see evil in ourselves and see good in other people. So it's time to begin to realize that there's a lot of good in us, that we can use in the outside world.
And the other question I wanted to pose is on, the medicine.
Yes.
There are certain areas in Africa, remote areas where there are no clinics, and people are sick. What's your view on medicine? Because there are people who can't even take any medicine, or the traditional kind of medicine. What's your view on that, so that the Christians can be enlightened and know?
I really wish that my wife Dorothy was here to answer that, because she's more in the medical field. But what I have known is that most of the conventional white, as we may call it, medicines are actually herbs, roots, and all these things that we know, that we see, the natural things that God created. Now, if you reach a village, which I have been to many times, a village where perhaps the clinic is 12 hours walk from where they are, and people are dying because somebody went in there and preached to them that they must not even drink a leaf, they must not even cut a root because it is evil. They called it demonic. I'm here to say, Pastor Miti, I don't think God would have created a demonic root. Medicines are in the leaves, medicines are in the roots of the trees, medicines are in the waters that we drink, and all that kind of thing. But we must draw a line. There are certain medicines that come our way in a wrong way. Perhaps they come through a person practicing spiritism.
Consultation, in other words.
Consultation,